we put so much time and effort into a registry with all of these baby items and which those things, are, important. You want to have clothes for your baby and, things that you actually need, a car seat. But like you said this earlier, you were like, I don't want to get you another onesie. Like,
yeah, my dad doing it.
This other area where we can come around one another and support each other. I just love that idea. And I feel like definitely will be utilizing that for myself.
Welcome to the To Flourish podcast, where we sit down and have conversations around all things fertility, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. From trying to conceive to that little babe nestled in your arms, my hope is that you walk away from today's episode feeling empowered, confident, and encouraged to flourish in this season.
All right, welcome back to the To Flourish podcast. I'm so excited to jump into today's episode. We're talking about something that I feel really passionate about, and it's really something that helped birth this podcast idea to begin with. So as we get started, I want you to get comfortable, and you're definitely going to want to grab a snack for this episode, because today we are talking to Holly Stein, the founder of Mama's Meals, an incredible postpartum meal delivery service. Holly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I would love to just get started. Could you give us a little introduction about who you are, maybe what Mama's Meals is, and how you got started with it?
Yeah, I am Holly. Obviously, I live in Southern California in Orange County with my husband, Eric. He's like our CEO and runs all the day-to-day stuff. And we have two kids, 7 and 3.5. And we homeschool my 7-year-old. And we love to go to the beach and just hang out and try to live slow-paced, more intentional lives as best as we can.
Yeah.
And we have a third one on the way coming in 6 weeks. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's kind of us. And then Mama Meals started. So, like I said, I have a 7-year-old. And so when I got pregnant with him in 2016, I was already I was very well down the rabbit hole, I guess I would say, in terms of I had switched out all of my cleaning products and my skincare and our food. I had learned, I grew up eating very standard American and chronically sick all the time. And I had realized that I could heal myself with, nutrition and getting sunlight, putting my feet in the grass and things like that. So when I got pregnant, I was like, okay, what are the options? I'd already seen The Business of Being Born. We had stumbled across it on Netflix. So I knew that there was options, I guess. So we settled on a birth center for the first. We had a lot of pushback on a home birth from family, and that felt like a happy middle ground. And I was very well researched for everything for pregnancy and the birth, exercises, nutrition, supplements, hypno babies. I had a doula. I was very well prepared and very unprepared for postpartum. And it wasn't I just kind of thought, oh, no, I'm good. I'm not going to need help with that, or I don't need to prepare for that. That doesn't apply to me. I just didn't know that I needed to do that. Mm-hmm. And especially back then, this is 2016, people on Instagram were not using it the way that it is today, of all these businesses and accounts with information. It was posting pictures of your food still.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And no one told, and I'm how did I have a midwife and a doula and hypno babies and nobody told me what I needed to eat after the baby came. So, I mean, they really emphasized you have a wound the size of a dinner plate inside you. You have to rest. I'm okay, got it. So I rested and I listened to them on the things that they told me to do. But in terms of food, I just ate cold smoothies, raw salads, things that I thought were healthy to be, that was fine. And then people brought over a bunch of well-intentioned junk food. And I just was that birth was so hard. I've earned this. I've been so good the last 9 months. And I ended up chronically constipated for the first like month. Like it was scary to poop for a solid month. And I just felt like it was interesting because I feel like my like uterus shrank down really fast. Like I stopped bleeding really fast. Like I kind of like healed quickly, but then I didn't feel like healed. Like I just kind of felt like blah all the time. I'm like, well, this is just, I guess, what postpartum is. No one really was talking about it. Like, I guess this is normal. And I remember when it was like maybe like 2 or 3 months, I was telling my husband, I'm like, I like love our son. He's great. And I'm like, but if this is the very best that this gets, like, I don't think I want to like do this again. And he's like, yeah, I kind of feel the same way. So we're like, okay, well, you know, whatever, moved on. And then at a mom's group, I met this girl who, it was kind of like a drop-in mom's group anywhere from 0 to 12 months. And she's like, I just finished my first like 40 days. And I was like, what's that? And she was talking about like the traditional Chinese medicine approach to postpartum of eating like warm soups and stews and easy to digest things. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense, but you just don't know what you don't know. So I like had banked that in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, well, for the next baby, like people want the like redemption birth. Like I had a great birth, but I'm like, I need the redemption postpartum of like doing this all differently. So when I got pregnant with my daughter in 2019, she was born in 2020. I bought the first 40 days, which is like, if you haven't heard of that book, you need to read it. It's like like I said, the traditional Chinese medicine approach to postpartum. It lays everything out and it has a ton of recipes in there. So I cooked over 60 meals and froze them all individually.
Oh my goodness.
In my deep freezer. And I like made a little menu of everything that I had and I put it by my bedside. And every day I would just tell my husband, like, oh, I want like the oatmeal congee, or I want the blueberry pancakes or whatever. And he would just reheat everything and bring it to me in bed, which I didn't even consider how much easier it would be for him to like not have to really cook. He just reheated things.
That's incredible.
And then for me, every time I ate, I just like felt like I was being wrapped in this like warm hug. Like it was just like, oh, my shoulders relaxed. I just felt like I'm wearing a diaper. My boobs are leaky, but I'm like, everything's going to be okay. Like I felt like so much, my mood was so much better. Like everything felt brighter. And it was just such an easier postpartum compared to the first one, even though we had like a 3-year-old running around the house too. Like it was crazy how much easier it was. And I had no digestive issues. Like I think it was like I was still very worried about like the first postpartum poop because of my first experience. And I think it was like day 2 or so. And I was like, oh my gosh, I went to the bathroom and it was easy. And it was like, not a big deal. And I remember being like so excited about that because it was so traumatizing the first time. So we got through that postpartum. And then I think when my daughter was about 6 or 7 months, someone reached out, like an acquaintance being like, I'm really struggling with my first postpartum. Do you know any postpartum doulas? And I was like, here's a few recommendations. But I was like, let me cook you some food and just drop it off on your doorstep. And she's like, sure, I'll Venmo you for the groceries. I'm like, don't even worry about it. Like, I want to gift this to you because selfishly, like the joy that I was getting cooking the food to drop it off, knowing how much it impacted me. I was like, I just want to like, I don't even know her that, like I wasn't even invited to the baby shower. Like I don't know her that well, but I was like, I just need to gift someone this experience. Yeah. So gave that to her. She's like, oh my God, like I feel like she had a great experience. And then I cooked for another friend who was having her third. And I was like, I'm not getting you another onesie. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to cook you some food. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, it was her first postpartum eating like kind of like warmer soups and stews. And she's like, wow, that was like such a difference. So my daughter turned about 1. I was telling my husband, like, we need to start this business. And he's like, absolutely not. Like, we don't know anything about like the food business or anything like that. I'm like, it's fine. We're just going to like figure it out. So then I just made a menu on like Canva and made it into a PDF and bought like a domain and was like, website coming soon, like click here to see our menu. And I made an Instagram and started networking with like local doulas and midwives in our area. And it grew so fast because people were like, oh, I've actually been meaning to send my friend a meal or Darbot, but I haven't had a chance to get there. I'm glad I can just like, have something with ingredients and things that I trust. That I can just buy this and be done with it. So that was like about 2.5 years ago. And now like we're shipping nationwide and it's like crazy.
Yeah, it's so incredible. Oh my gosh. I love how, it began with your own story of
Yeah.
like you experienced a postpartum and then realizing or finding out through someone else like, wait, it doesn't have to be that way. It
Yeah.
could be a different way. And it is so incredible. I am like just like and like eagerly anticipating the day when I get to can buy something from Mama's Meals, either for myself or for a friend, because it
Yeah.
is such a good idea. Like you were saying, you said you found so much joy like cooking for
Yeah.
these people in your life. And I know from my experience too, after experiencing my own postpartum, and what a blessing, and like how taken care of I felt and how good I felt from the meals that my friends were bringing me, these warm, stews and things. Like every time after that I made a meal for someone in my community, it just felt so good because I was like, I
Yeah.
know what this feels like.
It does. Like and it's nice to be doing something. I'm like, oh, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I just feel like I'm
Yes.
so excited. Like I never feel like I'm like, oh, I have to do this. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. Like, and every time we hit like another like big milestone in like sales or whatever, it's like I always think of it like, oh my gosh, look how many people we got to
Yes.
help. Like that was that many thousands of orders. Like that is so cool. Like how many people did we save from like Uber Eats and like frozen pizza?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. There's mothers behind every order and
Yeah.
families that
Yeah.
are experiencing just health and vitality and healing. Well, I would love to know. So as we like jump into this conversation, right, there's probably moms who are familiar with this style of eating postpartum, but then others where maybe it's their first time hearing about, oh, maybe there's certain foods that I should eat and some that I should avoid during this time. And I would love to know, why does the type of food that we eat postpartum matter?
Yeah, and it's crazy because pretty much every other culture, except for us here, like Western here, like in America, has some version of this. Like I know, like I met a mom who she's Mexican. She's like, oh yeah, my mom came over and these are the things that she made for me. And like Ayurveda from Indian, like they had like, oh yeah, these are the things that we eat. And like all of Asia, like they like, oh, this is what we eat. And the common theme is that they're all warm, soft, like easy to digest foods. And so traditional Chinese medicine, so you have like the yin and the yang. The yin and the yang, everyone is probably familiar with.
Yeah.
And there are these like different energies. And the yin is like the very feminine energy, and like the yang is a very masculine energy. So like birth is a very yang experience. Like it's very intense. Like there's like strong guttural noises. Yang is very like focused on youth, fast paced. Like we're a very yang culture here. And immediately after birth, you were like, what they say is like yin deficient. And so to nourish that yin energy, it needs to be like slow, like rest, like these nourishing, warm things. And Ayurveda says the same thing. They call it vata. So there's like 3 different doshas in Ayurveda. So vata is made up of air and space. And if you think about it, like you have this baby and your uterus is still huge. And you have this giant empty like air and space that needs to, shrink back down to size. And for them, like you don't want to eat like all those like really dry, like airy chips and crackers, because that's a lot of air and space. You want the really grounding, like warming foods that are going to kind of like bring you back down, like the roasted veggies and like the ghees and the bone broths and all the things like that. Because your digestion shuts down during birth, and you need to like bring it back on very gently. And things like salads and raw veggies are difficult to digest early on. So they both say, like traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda is both, it's like that first 40-ish to 42 days. And so it's not forever. And I know I've had a September birth. I'm having this baby in August. People are like, but it's so hot where I live. Like, do the best you can. I mean, try not to like chill yourself if you can avoid like the super ice cold things. But I would always like err over like quality versus, anything else. So like stir fries are really great too, but just try to stick to like the cooked things, at least in its beginning stages. and favor like really high quality like fats, like ghee, butter, bone broth, you really are very depleted in the beginning, and you want to, re-nourish yourself and get all these nutrients back because you just birthed a human. Like I feel like we minimize it in this culture of like,
I agree.
I saw a meme the other day that was like, I just created a human, and it's like society. Okay, but do you look hot yet? Like we're so focused on this like bounce back. I'm going like on a tangent now, but
no, it's
we're so depleted. Like we've just created a human, and now we are sustaining their life on the outside, maybe breastfeeding, and you need to like really focus on replenishing their cells, because they say, I don't have evidence to back this up, but they say that how you nourish yourself in these first 40 days can affect the next 40 years of your life.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, even just thinking, right? You spent 9 months creating this baby, this human within you, and then you go through birth, you give birth, and then outside on top of that, or on the other side of that, now you're sustaining that baby. Like, and so, I really agree with you. I feel like our culture really does minimize like the impact of that on our bodies. And so having this, this knowledge, or taking the time to really nourish ourselves postpartum to replenish, what was lost, and then to sustain, the energy of sustaining life outside of our bodies is so important.
Yeah. What's really cool too is like people, if you feel like you quote unquote like didn't do it correctly the first time around, like I feel like I didn't, like you can like pretty much erase what you did the last time on your next one. So if you do like the next one right, like I know a girl, she had a really hard birth and had like a really hard postpartum, and she had like bladder prolapse, with her first, and now she's going through her second postpartum, and her midwife was like, it is so important, like she has her on all these herbs and all these things, and like, she's like, you have to rest, you cannot get out of bed, because she's like, you can fix these problems from the first one if you really take care of yourself like this postpartum now.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I know. I'm like really I'm like, this is my last postpartum probably. So I'm like, I really got to do it right.
Yeah. So how does eating well, you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but how does eating well during this postpartum period like support the first days between mama and baby?
I mean, so there's breast milk production. That's one thing that needs to, I know, like, you're going to have colostrum those first few days, and then like your more mature milk is going to come in. But this is definitely not the time to be like, okay, how fast can I like lose the weight? Like by nourishing yourself, that's going to support like your breast milk production. It's going to support your hormones, like those first few days is like the largest hormone drop you're ever going to experience at any point in your whole life. So it's going to help support your hormones by having a lot of like fat and protein. You have a lot of like tissue that needs to be repaired. Even like your mood is going to be better. Because you're not going to be sleeping a lot. It's really important that you're getting nourishment from somewhere, and eating kind of like you can be eating like pizza and other things. And I'm not saying to like never eat pizza, but you could be like malnourishing yourself. Like you're consuming things that are really kind of just getting you by a little bit, but that are not like deeply like healing and supporting your body's recovery process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember, so I had prepped a few meals when I was towards the end of my pregnancy for postpartum, and I made like a chicken soup, just like a classic just chicken noodle soup. And I was like, this is the meal, super easy, that when I go into labor, I'm going to have my husband like defrost and have it for the first meal, like after the baby's born. And literally in my memory of being postpartum, that soup is like the best soup I've ever eaten in my life. But it was like just a normal, like nothing special about it. But it just like, I remember like eating it like those hours after and just being like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And like, I feel like that's just a testament of my body, is like feeling the replenishment and the nourishment. And it was just really funny to like remember that back and be like, it's like, there's nothing special about that. But
No,
there actually was.
I love that you said that because when like in creating the menu, I was like, everything is very like, I don't want to use the word plain, but it's something you've had before. Like I didn't want it to be like, well, one, I'm not a chef, so, but like I didn't want it to be like these crazy, like creative, like Mexican, Japanese fusions where you're like, what is that? Like it's lentil stew, it's oatmeal, it's chicken and rice. Like you've had this before. Like it's something your mother or your grandmother like probably had making in her Dutch oven. Like this is not the time that I want you to feel like, what is this? This is like, yeah, chicken soup. Like it's very comforting. You know what to expect. Like it's very familiar and like grounding feeling. You're like, I know what this is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. So I would love to talk about what are some practical ways that mothers and families who are expecting can start to prepare for the postpartum time.
Yeah. I mean, for food, yes. So if you don't have a deep freezer, and have space for one, and I would almost, people who say, you have a garage, and like, I don't have any space, I challenge you. Maybe there's some stuff in there that you don't need. But a deep freezer, I think, is a really good investment that you can stock up a lot of things. I mean, maybe you have like a giant freezer in your refrigerator in your house. I personally do not. But I mean, like a couple $100, I think that's a good investment. And then there's like a few different ways that I tell people that they can like stock their freezer for postpartum. Like obviously you can order meals from us, but to keep it even like more cost effective, I would maybe like print out some recipes that you were looking for, like, in first 40 days or on Pinterest. There's so many recipes out there of like the soups and the things that you want. And I would like hand them out to like friends and family who are willing to help you and be like, hey, can you take these 2 recipes? Can you make them and freeze them into like smaller, more individual meal-sized portions? So you hand out like maybe like 6 or 7 recipes, and next thing you know, like your freezer is just stocked. So if you have anyone who's willing to help, like take advantage of that, because I'm like, weddings and babies are really the only time that people are willing to like show up and be like, what can I give you? Like, how can I help you? And people generally want to help like before the baby comes and right after the baby comes, but it's like after a few weeks go by, it's like people kind of just like forget and like you're just not on your own, but take advantage of that time. So if you can ask anyone to help you, I've done like meal prep parties too for friends, like as like a little sprinkle type thing where we had a bunch of recipes and people Venmoed me for the groceries. I went shopping and then we all came together, cooked a bunch of meals, portioned them all out into like different containers or mason jars and things like that. She brought them all home, froze them. And she said that she's like, oh, I love it. Every time I ate one of the meals, it reminded me of that, like, the party that we had. So I think that's like a really fun way too. I personally obviously love to cook. So even though I have access to like unlimited meals right now, like, at our kitchen and our inventory, there's like new things that I want to try as well. And like, I want a recipe test for like to add to the menu. And I like to do that. So I started it at like 28 or 30 weeks. And like once a week on Sundays, I'm like, this is like my cooking day. Like I'm going to like make a few things for postpartum. And I've started with things that I can like vacuum seal. So they're not getting exposed to any air. So they're going to last a long time. So last weekend I made like a bunch of bone broth. Like I just like a huge thing of bone broth and like froze them into like smaller containers in our freezer. So I think like going slow also helps too. But I think really getting the village involved. And even like for meal trains too, I tell people like meal trains are great. You always can put in your notes like, oh, I'm gluten-free or I'm dairy-free. Like just put in your request like, oh, I want my digestion is going to be sensitive. Like, can you please stick to like warm, soups and stews and things like that while I'm recovering? And then give examples. Like people want to give you what you want. They just need like a little bit of direction. And then for people, I mean, like we typically eat like organic, regenerative meats and things like that. And someone's going to bring you something and it might not be like sprouted oats with like grass-fed butter, like I would welcome that and say thank you so much and eat it, enjoy it, and like let it nourish you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so good. I love the party idea of having your friends together and like this is I think right. I feel like what's normal in our culture is let's get together and like open gifts, right? And you know, I've seen things before of like we put so much time and effort into a registry with all of these baby items and you know, which those things, you know, are important. You want to have clothes for your baby and, you know, things that you actually need, a car seat. But like you said this earlier, you were like, I don't want to get you another onesie. Like,
I'm not doing it.
This other area where we can come around one another and support each other. I just love that idea. And I feel like definitely we'll be utilizing that for myself for the next time.
We're having another, so we have, like I have like a mother's blessing coming up with some of my friends this weekend. And then my mom's having like a sprinkle with our families and stuff. And so for our registry, like I just have all these, like, I have like adult diapers, like for myself, like pads, like perennial spray, like all these things that my friends that I'm like, are like, oh great. Like, yeah, she needs those things. And I'm like, is my mom's family going to think I'm crazy for registering for pads? But I'm like, those are the things that I need. If you want to like help me, like, that's what I need.
Absolutely. That was also one of the things that I was thinking about in what I wanted to talk to you about was, you know, utilizing things like a meal train or, you know, having people come alongside you. How can we ask for things like make requests? Or I remember in my process, like when I was setting up a meal train or even, you know, pulling on people, there was a part of me that felt a little weird. Like, is this extra? Like, you know, specifying like, I would appreciate organic, like if possible or whatever. And I know I kind of had to get over a little bit of a hump, but how would you, I don't know, like if you were to talk to somebody about that?
Yeah, no, that's tough because I mean, I have some friends who are like totally like in alignment. And then we have like some of our like, you know, other people who are just like, what are you talking about? But so one, you can register for gift cards on third-party sites like Baby List or whatever. So we have a lot of people who register for gift cards and then like will buy their own meals from us. Or we've had some people saying like, hey, in lieu of a meal train, we are collecting donations to buy postpartum meals from this company that focuses on, you know, postpartum healing specifically. So people who like didn't do a meal train, but everyone who like would have done the meal train, they all Venmo'd in like, you know, 20, 40, 50, whatever they felt comfortable contributing. And they took all that money and then bought meals.
Yeah.
But that's tough. I mean, especially, to request, but I would put in the notes like, hey, like, hey, I would at least try to stick to like, you know, the soups and the stews or the, you know, rice or like stir fries or give them like examples of things that we're able to eat. And then if you get something totally off the wall that you're like, I just don't want to eat this right now, I'd be like, okay, that's going to my husband and my kids, I guess, right now. And they're having, but I would put in the notes, like we try to, you know, prioritize organic ingredients when possible. By like giving that nudge without sounding like you're going to be unappreciative of something. So I'm like, there's like that quote, like a happy donut is better than a sad salad. Like if you're going to be so stressed over maybe the few pesticides that are glyphosate that's in the oats, which I personally try to avoid when I can, versus being like, wow, that like someone really took the time and like, you know, put a lot of like love into this and I can like really enjoy it and know this is like not what I'm eating all the time. I think like those intentions that you put behind it are really like most important.
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you. It's hard. I just try to like tell it. If most people in my family and friends at this point know who we are and just know like oh yeah, they're like weird and eat organic. But I'm like, it's not weird.
Like, yeah.
They try. And so, and a lot of things I kind of just don't even ask them for food anymore because I'd rather just do it myself. So like I didn't register, obviously, because with Mama Meals, if I didn't have Mama Meals, I would register for something like Mama Meals.
Yeah.
Obviously I have access to all of those things and I enjoy cooking. So I have I'm making all of my own stuff. So I'm like, I don't need help with, if you want to like come over and fold some laundry or play with my kids or something else, like I'm willing to take other help in additional ways.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. Yeah. It sounds like there's just lots of creative different ways to pull on people or like set things up for success the way that you want to receive things.
And having 2 older kids too, I kind of know that like the grandparents, they try, they just don't quite understand. So if it's like really important to us and I have like, I've gone on Thrive Market and have ordered a bunch of like pantry staples that are at both grandparents' houses that I'm like, here's their food. Like I just snatch them here because they're like, oh, we went to Taco Bell. It was gluten-free. So it was healthy. Like, I'm like, oh, I see what you're like, how you were trying to do that. That's not really in alignment. So I kind of just send things with them now, just to make it a little bit easier for them.
Totally. Yeah. That's so good. So I also want to know, why is it important to prepare ahead of time for postpartum, meal-wise?
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, with my first, I prepped one meal. Like I was going to eat one time. And it is not, I feel like this is like with anything though, like especially postpartum though, if you have like, when I go to the grocery store, like over the weekend and I prepare and have all this fruit chopped and like veggies roasted and ready to go, like, and all those things, if I have easy access to healthy options, I'm going to eat all the healthy options. It's when I don't have the access to them and there's like a barrier of like, oh, my daughter's taking a nap and I can't go to the store right now, or I don't feel like cooking. That's when I'm like eating something that I don't want to be eating, or you're like scrambling to like Uber Eats, like a $45 like chicken pad thai. That's not even what I wanted to be eating in the first place. Yeah. So, I mean, even people think like, oh, like my husband or my partner, they're going to like, cook for me. It's so crazy how you can have a baby and then like, you're just like, wow, I brushed my teeth today. And that was like a huge accomplishment. Like, it just feels like there's always something like you're, changing out like your Patsicle or you're breastfeeding and like how, 12 times a day and your husband's like helping with the diapers and all these things. Or even maybe he takes like a week off or 2 weeks off, which would be like wonderful. And then he's back to work. Like 2 weeks is still very, very, very early postpartum. So to like think that you're going to be able to have time to do it, like, oh, I'm taking maternity leave, I'll have plenty of time. It just doesn't work out like that. So being prepared ahead of time will set you up for success, or you're going to be reaching for those things that you didn't want to be eating in the first place that are not going to make you feel as good.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was postpartum, like I had prepped like a few meals, and I had also prepped some like breakfast burritos for my husband I froze that he could just pop in the oven.
Yeah.
But I was amazed like at, I'm like out. So just with the baby in bed most of the time. And so my husband was taking care of like so much stuff around the house. We have pets. I've got so many plants. I gave birth also in the middle of July, and where I live, it's like 110 degrees. So like those plants needed to be watered outside.
Good point. Like pets, other things too.
And so and I think this wasn't something that I anticipated, but had so much that he was taking care of on top of like taking care of me and our baby, doing diaper changes and whatnot. And so I feel like, prepping and having food available to where I love that you said, because it's so true. Like if something's not easily accessible, like healthy wise, like we're hungry, going to reach for whatever we have,
yeah.
or whatever is easy. And so, making the space to have that stuff available for you and for whoever is your support system, like your partner or your family, it's like makes it a breeze.
Yeah. If like a postpartum doula is like within the means, like that's a great way to, but they're maybe only there, a couple times and they can only cook, so much, but having them, if they like cook something to have, prepare extra. So it's there, but it's just one of those things, like there's, a lot of things you can't do ahead of time and you can't really prepare for, but this is like one thing that is like within your control. If it's important to you to do ahead of time, like just have it done, like stick it in the freezer. And then you don't have to think about it. And then, like I said, like for your husband, like it's so much easier for them to just defrost and reheat, like, or a mom or a friend or whatever, like anyone who can just come in and be like, oh yeah, can you just reheat that? That's so easy. Like anybody can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've talked about a few different like food types, like stews, broths.
Yeah.
You've mentioned like oats. I'm curious if there's any sort of like drinks or types of drinks that you would recommend having on hand for postpartum.
I love that. I'm like such a beverage person. I feel like at a restaurant, I need like 3 different beverages at all times. Bone broth, I already mentioned, is like really great to drink. But like warm milk, there's so many options. Like, hot cocoa or like chai or like golden milk with like turmeric. Teas are really great. So we sell like it's like oat straw, nettles, red raspberry leaf, and red clover blossom. Like that's a really great blend for postpartum herbs. Those are really great herbs, kind of really whatever stage of life that you're in womanhood. Except for red clover blossom is not recommended for pregnancy, but the other 3, the red raspberry leaf, oat straw, nettles, like I'm drinking like every day right now. But yeah, I love like a warm milk with like chamomile and honey, like at night. So I like
this sounds so calming.
Oh my gosh,
so
it's
comforting.
Yeah, it's first 40 days like labels it as like they're like sleep nectar, and it's so good. I'm like a fan of like the warm, milky, like creamy drinks. So, and I like love a good chai. So really anything. If you, I'm not a matcha person, but if you're like a matcha, and you could do like matcha, just anything. That you make, just blend in like some ghee or some like butter, like stir in some collagen, like peptides, like anything you got like a little fat and protein to will be like really beneficial.
Sounds so good.
Yes.
Not only do I want to eat a snack right now, I also want a little drink.
I know. We have like an ashwagandha hot cocoa that I'm like, I'm just like, bring me one of those every day in bed.
That's what I did postpartum too, is I had a ceremonial type hot chocolate that was like milk, butter, chocolate. I think we put in some collagen powder, some cinnamon, and at the end of every day, it was just like I looked forward to the evening time because I would eat it in the evening. Yeah, it was so delicious, and I would drink it right before going to bed too, and so like just going to bed with a full tummy, it felt good.
I know. I always try to like drink like bring me like the tea and the bone broth like in the morning and stuff, so I get through those, and then like the other drinks are like my reward for getting through. Like if I start my day with like a hot chai, I'm like I don't want that like plain tea or bone broth.
yeah so awesome. Okay, I think we're kind of coming up on getting close to our end of our time together. I would love to know if you were to share any sort of wisdom or advice for a first-time mom preparing for postpartum. What would you want them to know?
Ooh, well, we kind of touched on this earlier, but like really prioritizing like preparing for the postpartum versus like the stuff. I know how fun it is to like decorate a nursery and like do all of those things, but really like lean in. I mean, there's so many resources and information of like, oh, what should I put in my postpartum cart? Like kind of like lean into like the few basics that you're going to need of like, you know, like a good perennial spray or making like patsicles or things like that. But also I think just taking into it, like you can have all of the stuff of like the meals and the things, but mindset is really important. And just knowing that, I mean, it's so hard with it's like when I run into like people, it's like first time. I'm like, oh, you're a first time parent. I can totally tell. Like versus like, you know, I was the same way. I remember like he was like, my son had like a little like congestion in his nose like one night, and I was like, oh my God, I couldn't like go to sleep. I had to like watch him breathing. I'm like, is he breathing? Like, but just kind of going with the flow and just letting things unfold and not worry about like, oh, we got to get onto the schedule and the nap routines and the this and the that. And especially like those first 3 months, like that fourth trimester, like really give yourself grace to like, don't think about the schedule. Don't think about losing weight. Don't think about like, just be present with the baby, and just like every day is going to be a little different. So, I mean, I'm totally like the person like, oh, I'm like, they wore those pajamas last night and he slept 4 hours straight. I have to wear those pajamas again. Like, like trying to like
the
crack
secret sauce.
Yeah, crack the code, or like we did a feeding at this time, so we have to do the feeding again at this time. Like, I think really just like embracing it and going with it. And like this phase, it ends. Like it's so hard in the beginning, but it ends. And then there's going to be the next phase and the next phase and the next phase. And there's always going to be like a next phase. But I think I enjoyed my newborn time so much more with my second, because I knew that the hard part of like the getting up every 2 hours, that ended. And then once my child, the first one's like moving and walking, I'm like, oh, this is harder than the newborn stage. But you don't know that it's, I mean, it's whatever. It's all hard and great, just different. But that the hardness, it passes. It passes, and just like enjoy it. Like,
that's so good. So good. It's so important, right? Because for a first-time mom, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe you've had people in your circle you've gotten to see, but also at the same time, like, it's every situation is unique, and so really the mindset of being present.
The comparison. Don't do the comparison thing.
Yeah.
It's hard. And I realize it doesn't end, because I feel like when they were all babies and it was like, oh, is your baby crawling yet? My baby's not crawling yet. And then all the babies were crawling. Everyone was past that. It was like, oh, is your baby walking? My baby's not walking yet. Then everyone was obsessed with the walking. And then it was like the first words. And now it still doesn't end, because like now I have a 7-year-old, and it was like, is he reading? Like what level is he reading at? I'm like, you guys, I'm done with that. Like, I'm so done with that, because he's gonna everyone's gonna read when they're like at that, or the potty training or whatever. I'm like, he's gonna read when he's ready to read. And then once everyone's reading, we're all gonna be passed it on to the next thing. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Stop asking me these questions.
Like I'm not comparing, because we're all gonna get through it. And be on to the next thing. Like I now see this is like a trap.
Oh man, it's so good to know, to hear. Okay, and so I also want to know, so how can mothers and families utilize mama's meals during their postpartum period? And do you have any specific meals or bundles that you would recommend? If someone was looking and was like, I'm going to buy something.
Yeah, I would say the best, I mean, if you are pregnant and hearing this, I would say the best thing to do is order before your due date, like a few weeks before, because we cook everything, we freeze it, and we ship it frozen to your door. So you can stock your freezer and you can have it in there. Like, you don't have to think about it. It's good to go. So some people will order it where it's like, oh, just the mom is eating the food. Like, this is her food. Some people will share with, partners or like other children. So some people ask like, how long does it last? Like that really depends on like who's eating it and who's not eating it. We say every container is 2 servings. Some people say like, oh, I, paired, eggs with my oatmeal and I got 3 servings out of it. So that it really varies. So I would say order ahead of time if you can. And so we have the options to order of preset packages or build a box. So the most common thing that people do is order on their first order, like one of our set packages, because it does include a variety of everything. They get to try everything. And then usually their second and third order after that, they'll do the build a box because they're like, oh, these are my favorite things. This is what I want to get. Like, oh, I maybe like didn't love like the kitchery or the lentil stew or whatever. Or like my husband, it's easy for him to whip up oatmeal. I don't want any more of that, but I love the creamy chicken and the chili or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's like the most common way. And so we have like lactation brownies and like vanilla chai pancakes. And, we're definitely coming into a place where we're going to be adding to the menu more. It's just, we've been like in this hyper growth phase where we're like, we can't even add anything. Like we're just trying to like keep up with what we have and make sure that none of our systems break as we grow, because we want to make sure that the customer experience is positive all the way through. But we're bringing in a chicken curry to the menu. So we're cooking that for the first time tomorrow. I'm like, I've been wanting to bring this for so long.
Oh my gosh. I love curry so much.
Oh, me too. I know. The other day I was like, I'm really craving a curry, and I almost like Uber Eats'd it. And I was like, no, I'm like, I have the stuff, I can do it. And I did it. And I was like, okay, that was worth it. But like I said, if it's not easy and accessible, like it's, that's rare that I'm like, oh yeah, let me pull out all these like carrots and rice and like spices. Like it was so much work. It
probably tasted so good.
Oh, it tasted so, after I did it, I'm like, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say try to stick to like those, soups and stews and the easy to digest things for like the first 40 days. And then, but like see how your digestion is too. And then if you really are like wanting more in-depth information, like I would say definitely see like a Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic practitioner, because everyone's constitution, there's like bio-individuality is real. So like see what they, say. But if your digestion is doing great and you're like, oh, I'm feeling really good, like definitely start mixing in like other things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. The idea of maybe trying a few things, figuring out what you like, and then building from there.
Totally.
Well, I would love to share. We have if you're interested in purchasing or utilizing Mama Meals at all in your own postpartum recovery, or like we've talked about, even just as a gift for someone in your life who's pregnant, we have a link that you can use for Mama's Meals. It will be on the show notes of this podcast. So whenever you're listening, like you can grab the link and look at what's available on Mama's Meals. I believe the link is $20 off of a purchase of $200.
Yep.
For first time buys. So use our code. This is an amazing investment, I feel like, for yourself if you're preparing for postpartum, and for the people you love who are also might be preparing for postpartum. Yeah,
they make great gifts too. And we also have a pantry store too. Like if people who are like, okay, I don't want to spend they're not that close of a friend, I'm not going to spend that much, on a whole box. But we have a whole pantry store as well, where it's like it's like cookie mix, like lactation cookie mix, lactation brownie mix, banana muffin mix, like our oatmeal that we have, but it's like just the dry goods that are all in the like $20 to $30 range too.
Yeah.
That make great gifts as well.
Oh, absolutely. That sounds so much fun too. Like I love putting together little cookies or brownies.
Oh, I know, me too.
Like making, so getting the mixes would be such a sweet gift.
Yes.
So take a look at the link, and also you guys can follow along with Mama Meals on their Instagram. Do you want to share your Instagram handle?
Yeah, it's eat.mamameals, MAMA meals.
Perfect. Awesome. And I love following your account. I feel like there's tons of educational things that you guys post about, as well as really funny memes.
Yes.
I love the memes. I feel like you posted one the other day and I just was like, this is so great.
I'm glad that you said that. My husband's like, we got to step up the meme game. And he's like making these memes. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll try them out. We'll see how they do. But like, people love them.
Yeah, no, they're so relatable. You know?
Yeah.
It's funny.
I'll let him know. I'll tell him.
Yeah, tell him. We love them. So yes, if you're listening, check out Mama's Meals, follow them on Instagram, check out their store. And yeah, I just want to thank you again, Holly, so much for joining us today and for sharing about postpartum nutrition from your own journey, things that you took away and learned, and then even just starting this amazing resource for other moms all over.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun to be here.
Yeah, I know it's going to be so helpful for mamas. And thank you everyone who's watching. Don't forget to follow To Flourish and Mama Meals. We're both on Instagram, social media. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I would love to hear your thoughts and your takeaways from today's episode. We love you and we'll see you next time.